restore justice. Please help me give a warm hand of welcome to Mr. Charles Key.
Thank you, Paymon. It's really a exciting thing to just be able to be here with all of you and like-minded people, and I appreciate so much what Paymon has done for years now and the leadership he gives in this patriot movement that we desperately need, and he's done a great job. I appreciate being here today. And gosh, I hope I can tell you everything that even he talked about, because there's just too much. As you know, the Oklahoma City bombing case is huge, and we produced this huge monumental report on the Oklahoma City bombing case. I've got some at the back table. John has some on his table. Get one either place. This is the result of all of our efforts and the work that we did on the Oklahoma City bombing. This is in a report format. It tells you everything that you want to know about the Oklahoma City bombing case. It has the eyewitness testimony. It has the information and the evidence of prior knowledge, government documents showing that, the documents about the other explosive devices that were in the building. It has color grids and pictures in here from experts like General Ben Parton about the crater, the alleged crater, but there actually was a crater. It was very small compared to what they claimed it was. We document that and show that in this report, so come by and get one at one of the two tables. What I want to talk about first about the Oklahoma City bombing case is the Middle Eastern connection. You know, the truth does always have a way of coming out about most anything. Maybe not all the truth. You know, people ask me all the time, we're going to know all the truth about the Oklahoma City case. Well, none of us know that, but more truth will come out like it is today. The Middle Eastern connection, well, first I want to say this. Ted Gunderson spoke a while ago, and one of the first things that I did back in 1995 when I was in the legislature, and right after the Oklahoma City bombing happened, I was confronted with a lot of different things. People asked me, why did you get involved and how? Just to touch on that a little bit, I saw things just like everyone else did around the country. It didn't make sense, didn't add up. And so I was asking questions. Someone put on my desk at the state capitol one of Ted's reports that he's got back there on his desk. And here this was an FBI agent, not just an agent, the head of a bureau in LA at one time, that was putting this report out and saying, hey, it's not like they're saying it was. You know, it couldn't have happened with a single truck bomb like they claim, et cetera, et cetera. And as I talked to other people, and days went by and a few weeks went by, we were in the middle of our session in Oklahoma, and I would see that report laying there on my desk. And so one day when we had a lull in between meetings and what have you, I was looking at that desk and I thought, I'm just going to call this guy up. His phone number was on his report and everything. And I called him up, and I got a recording. Said, this is Ted Gunderson. I don't remember what it all said now. And so I left my name on his recorder. And of course, I had the thought right after that. I thought, somebody's listening to this, so I'm, you know, they know who I am now. And it was after that, as this is a very long story short, that as I looked into a lot of other questions about the Oklahoma City bombing, I knew I had to either get in or out. There was no in between with a case like that. And so I had later on, in the middle of the summer, or the beginning of the summer, I had a press conference in Oklahoma City at the state capitol. After talking to a lot of state House members and Senate members and telling them what I was going to do, I had a press conference in which Ted was there, and General Ben Parton, and another expert that was one of the members that helped create the atomic bomb. We were going to have also Sam Cohen, who lives out in this area of California, who was the inventor of the neutron bomb. Couldn't get out of the airport because of the Unabomber, and so he gave a taped television interview that was taped here at the NBC affiliate, or in LA, and they showed it in Oklahoma City several times. It's a big event, but Ted was one of the first two people that I came across as an expert and contacted. You know, back then we knew that there was a Middle Eastern connection to this, and the reason we knew is because the witnesses, all of the witnesses that you can read about in this report, talk about the people, person or persons that were with McVeigh. You can't find a witness that saw McVeigh at the scene of the crime that didn't see somebody else with him. And the witnesses, the great majority of them, describe the John Doe or John Does as being dark complected. Usually they say Middle Eastern, Arabic sometimes, use words like that. And then there was a lot of real good work that a couple of journalists in Oklahoma City at the NBC affiliate in Oklahoma City did in discovering more about the Middle Eastern connection. For example, there were thousands of former Iraqi soldiers that were allowed into this country right after Desert Storm in 1993, the Desert Storm War. And we put this in the report. In the back, in the 150 pages of appendix, there's 3 pages there, pages 475, 76, and 77, that talk about these several thousand, they call them POWs, some of them were family members, and then there's this other category that weren't identified, that our State Department was pushing to allow into this country at the end of Desert Storm. Now that's in the last year of George Bush Sr.'s administration. We had several congressmen and senators from around the country that were protesting this and trying to stop it. Other countries were refusing to let these people in their country because of the obvious security risk. But here our State Department was pushing to let these people in. So how does 9/11 happen and other terrorist events? We set it up. We put it together to allow it to happen. So we knew about the Oklahoma City case. Just recently, matter of fact, just last week, the truth slowly comes out. A lawsuit was filed in Washington, D.C. Against the nation of Iraq for having direct participation and responsibility for the Oklahoma City bombing case. Some of you may have read about this. It's slowly kind of creeping out into a lot of the press right now. But this is a case that we've worked on for quite some time. And a local attorney that we worked with and Judicial Watch joined together with this lawsuit. If you'd like to take a look at this, I'll have it over there at my desk today and tomorrow. Or I'll tell you how you can get a copy of it on the internet. So the Middle Eastern connection to the Oklahoma City bombing case. You know, a lot of people have been indoctrinated into the Oklahoma City case that, you know, it's just a couple of domestics, a couple of white guys, maybe a few others, you know, that were involved. And a lot of people just kind of buy into that, and it's just not true. Here's an article from the Manila Times, just back in February, that was talking about all the information that they gave to our government prior to the Oklahoma City bombing trial about the information they had about Terry Nichols. And they say even Tim McVeigh visiting the Philippines and having direct involvement with terrorists. Here's an article from the Jerusalem Report. Talks about radical domestics in America and in the West working with Middle Eastern terrorists regularly. There's a long history of that. It goes back 15 or 20 years. So, who was responsible for the Oklahoma City bombing case? Well, I wish I could tell you exactly who done it and who did it. But the couple of theories that I work under is that it was a very complex case, and it probably began as a former, actually still a current congressional aide. This guy was an aide to a U.S. senator that I couldn't name, but this person, I found out in a roundabout way, information that he had, and went and visited this guy and talked to him, and he had knowledge about the Oklahoma City case. And he said, I know this, that the genesis, these were his words, the genesis of the Oklahoma City case began right after Waco, when the ATF almost got axed. And I mean, it was just that close to being eliminated altogether. And some high officials in the ATF and other government officials started putting together a for-publicity sting operation to make the ATF look good. And that's how it began. He says, I don't know what happened after that, but obviously it got much more complex and other people got involved in it. But my theory of choice is that you have people that were innocently, so to speak, taken advantage of. You probably have agents that thought they were participating in a sting operation, even though they may have known that it was a fake sting operation just to make them look good. But I think you probably had another layer of individuals, of terrorists, that were bringing about a much bigger act with the one that took place, and one in which people actually did die, and a bomb really did go off at the time that it did. The original sting operation, it looks like, was planned to go off about 3 o'clock in the morning in front of the building when nobody was around. And there's a lot of good examples of that. You can read about those facts later. But the Oklahoma City bombing was really, unless you count the first World Trade Center bombing of 1993, was the first real terrorist act against the United States. And another thing that government officials, the reason it's so easy, it's a lot easier than what a lot of people think to cover up something like this, is a lot of officials don't want to go along with some of the problems with having a terrorist act like this take place, letting it be aired out publicly, and then doing what the public would demand needs to be done, and that is, just like 9/11, it would be required that our government retaliate for this act. And so there was a lot of, you've got a lot of government officials that may not have been directly involved in it, but elected officials and others aren't really that anxious to go to war. So the cover-up, is kind of pervasive in that you can get a lot of people to go along with it because their elected careers or otherwise their careers are in jeopardy or can be held over their heads. But the Oklahoma City case, the truth is coming out, and more of it will come out. It will come out through this lawsuit. A lot of people don't know that there were a number of documents sealed in the trials of McVeigh and Nichols in Denver back in 97 and 98. Still sealed to this day. Why? Why were they sealed? Allegedly for national security. And this suit that was recently filed will be targeting those in addition to other information to force that information to be brought out. There was a suit that was brought about almost a year ago now in Oklahoma City in federal court to try to force the release of the surveillance videos. And we almost got those released. We thought eventually the judge would probably throw the case out, but to our surprise, the judge kept holding the FBI and the Justice Department kind of their feet to the fire and was forcing them to move in a direction to release the videos, when at the last minute, it was kind of funny because this case, as this case went on, the Justice Department kept coming up with all kinds of excuses why they can't release the videos after all this time. And finally, after the Judge Wayne Alley, happened to be the original judge in the Oklahoma City case, and one that happened to not show up to work that day, and also the one that gave information to his hometown newspaper that he had been told by, in his words, people that ought to know that we ought to be on the lookout and be in a higher state of alert prior to the Oklahoma City bombing. Or maybe he was having a conscience, his conscience was attacking him or something. But he's been forcing this Justice Department to bring these videos to light, when all of a sudden at the very end, the Justice Department officials said, well, okay, here's our latest excuse. We can't let the surveillance videos out because Judge Maitch, back in the federal trials of McVeigh, put a what do you call it? Gag order on everybody out there, that you can't talk about what's going on. And so Judge Alley issued this stinging a statement to the Justice Department, said, and documenting this whole case. And he told them to go to Maitch, ask Maitch to release this gag so that these videos could be released. Of course, Maitch didn't do that. So after that ended back in the middle of last year, we and this attorney that handled the case, who was the attorney that filed this case, Mike Johnston, who's had a lot of international experience over the years with similar type cases, began brainstorming about what we could do, and he came up with this idea, which the documentation is very well laid out about the involvement of the Middle Eastern connection. And it's believed that it's got the government in some ways kind of in a corner because of our current situation of this alleged, in quote, war on terrorism, and the Bush administration going after Iraq, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of high expectations about what will come about in this case.